Colour grading is a process that practically every film has to go through. With its roots in the photochemical process, colour grading is all about adding that last visual element to your film by balancing and adjusting colour profiles. To grade footage, I use a piece of software called Adobe After Effects, but other software solutions are available. In this video, I'm going to show you a basic methodology to achieve a film stock look for your footage, whilst also demonstrating how you can use this approach to correct colour and exposure issues in your footage. To begin, open After Effects and create a new project. Open an Explorer window and drag in the file that you want to work on. From the project panel, select your footage and drag it down into this workspace. A common characteristic of many film stocks is that they capture a slightly warmed series of images, footage that has a slight golden glow to it. To emulate this, I shall right-click in this area of the screen and select a shape layer. In the fill option, I will select a golden yellow colour, like this. Now we have to turn this solid block of colour into a filter. In the workspace under the Mode tab, select the drop-down menu. Select Overlay. On your keyboard, press the letter T for transparency. This will open up the opacity setting. Click the percentage and hold, dragging your mouse to the left and to the right to see how this affects your footage. I like 18% opacity for this particular piece of footage. It adds a nice warm glow to the clip without appearing obviously stylized. The next thing we're going to do is emulate the slight dirtying of the edges that so often happens when movies are printed onto film stock. To do that, we go down to the workspace. Right-click, select New from the drop-down menu. From the sub-menu that emerges, select Solid. Select the colour fill icon and select the colour black. Moving back to our toolbar, select the shape icon. Press Q on your keyboard until the resulting shape is an ellipse. From here, head back down to your workspace and select the arrow at the far left of this new layer. This will drop down some editing options. If there is no option that already says Masks here, right-click the name of the layer and select Masks from the drop-down menu. From here, select New Mask. Move your cursor to the drop-down menu which contains the word Add. Select this and change it to Subtract. Now press F on your keyboard for feathering. Clicking on the blue values next to the word Pixels, enter a value of around 400. Now, press T for transparency on your keyboard. Change this value to somewhere between 12 and 15%. If we click this icon, which looks like an eye, next to the workspace, we can toggle layers on and off and see how they have impacted the look of our clip. As we can see, this layer adds some shadow around the edges of the frame, the same place in a film reel that is likely to attract dirt. It's a small change, but one that helps to tap into your viewer's unconscious appreciation for a particular type of filmic look. Already, we've made a difference to this clip, and you can experiment with these techniques on your own. You could, for example, create a solid blue overlay, which would serve to cool down your image as opposed to warming it up. Now we're going to explore how you can change the look of your clips by changing the contrast and the perceived colour range of your video files. To do that, first move your mouse to the work area and right-click. Select New from the drop-down menu and Adjustment Layer from the sub-menu which it brings up. Move the adjustment layer over your footage underneath our shape layers. Adjustment layers are really helpful. Essentially, any effect that you place on this layer will directly affect every piece of footage layered beneath it. We don't want to adjust our golden filter, hence why our adjustment layer is beneath it. Next, proceed to the Effects and Presets window over here. Enter the word Curves into the search window. Select the Curves option and drag it onto your adjustment layer. Note that in our Effects panel, we have now generated a graph. This line represents the colour profile in your video. The back half of the line represents the shadows and the darker midtones. The upper half of the line represents the highlights and the lighter midtones. The space to the left of the line represents increased lightness. The space to the right represents increased darkness. In other words, if we click and drag the middle of this line and pull it to the right, the midtones in this clip will start to get darker. Conversely, if we pull that same point to the left, past its original position, the midtones will begin to get lighter. Click the dead center of our curve. Then, about 1/4 from the bottom of the line, click to create another adjustment point. Now click and drag our shadows to the right, dragging them further into the darker regions of the space. See how the contrast in the image increases with darker shadows appearing. Let's click the line around 1/4 of the way from the top and blow out our highlights just a little bit further. This look increases the perceived depth of colour and shade by creating highlights that are lighter than they were before and shadows that are darker. But the cost is that we will lose detail in our shadows and detail in our highlights. If we start to remove our different effects layers one by one, we can see how this image has been altered and how each change works together to create, in this case, a warmer, higher contrast look. Remember, you can get a range of different looks by experimenting with this curve. Work with the footage that you have. Don't just arbitrarily crust the shadows or blow out the highlights of each and every clip. If you need to, put more light into the shadows, or lessen the intensity of your highlights. If your footage has not been exposed correctly, this is a really great tool you can use to help rescue it. In the Effects and Presets window, type in Hue. Drag it and drop it onto your adjustment layer. See how it adds a new field of settings below the last curve that we were using. Click the handle on the Master Saturation slider and drag it to the left. By dragging this slider just a little to the left, you can remove just a portion of the colour from your clip, giving it a slightly washed out look. The more you drag it to the left, the less colour remains in the clip. There are a lot of opportunities for you to use this feature to stylize your work. If we drag this all the way to the left, all of the colour is removed from the clip. Now we might return to our curve and readjust, rebalancing the colours to create a more vivid and striking black and white look. Of course, the look of your project and of your footage will greatly depend on what purpose you want your material to serve, what thematic resonance you want to create with your audience. A black and white look is probably inappropriate for most projects, but a high contrast, desaturated look might work really well for many, or a low contrast, oversaturated look. It all depends on you. It all depends on the vision you have. Choose the look that will work best for your project. Try to capture footage that is not over or underexposed. Adjust in post-production until you have a project that has the same depth of polish and purpose as that of your research.